Hello, this is Simon Hazeldine and welcome to this session on negotiation planning. As I'm fond of saying, I think that at least 80 to 90% of your success as a negotiator is down to the planning and preparation that you do in advance of the negotiation itself. Indeed, when I'm negotiating, I often in the early stages probe and check and ask questions to see how well prepared and planned the person I'm negotiating with is. Now, if I sense that they're not really planned and prepared, that they may be sort of winging it a little bit, then my expectation of what I'm going to get out of the negotiation increases and I go for more. So in a negotiation, if someone senses that you aren't planned or prepared, one, not only will you be at a disadvantage because you haven't planned and prepared, they will expect to get a better deal and press home their advantage. So I really can't emphasize enough the importance of doing your planning and preparation. And this session specifically, we're going to take a look at how to use the negotiation planning template. You've been provided with this. You may want to print this out and have it with you as we go through this exercise, or just follow along with me. You can obviously watch this video anytime you want to refresh your memory about this prior to doing your planning and preparation for any negotiations that you have. So what I've done with the negotiation template that you have is I've filled it in with a fictitious example, a fictitious negotiation situation, just by way of illustrating some of the key points. The fictitious example that I've given is one of a manufacturer wanting to list a new product, called a widget in this case, into a major retail store group. And as we go step by step through, I hope this will help to bring alive how to use the negotiation planning template. So, the first page in the negotiation planning template is to do with setting your SMASH objectives. You'll recall that SMASH stands for specific, measurable, achievable, stretching, and holistic or harmonious. So it's about making sure that before you go into a negotiation, you're very clear about what it is that you want to achieve. And also, because negotiation will involve a to and fro between two or more parties, it's not always possible to be very specific about exactly what it is you want to achieve in numerical terms, for example. Because there'll be a scale, we set up a like, intend and must. So a like being what we'd ideally want to achieve, we'd be delighted if we got this. Intend is our sort of realistic expectation, and our must is our absolute must get or no deal. And this also incorporates the concept of BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. What you will do if you cannot get an agreement. And having thought that through in advance, having a plan B, if you like, or a contingency, is a very strong source of power. And also what we need to do as well is do the best that we can in thinking about what the other person wants to achieve in the negotiation. Now, we may not know this precisely, but we can do our best to think about what this is, and then we can check this out in terms of what they're looking for when we're actually face to face with them in a negotiation. So we try our best to work out what their SMASH objective and their like, intend and must will be. This then helps us to define the likely bargaining arena, the areas within which the negotiation will take place. So let's take a look at with this example. So here the SMASH objective from the manufacturer is to list their new XYZ widget in 100% of the big store group companies' outlets and have a display featuring key traffic areas in the store with a date of the 30th of June. So that's specific in terms of it's exactly what you do want. There's some measurable things in there. It is achievable, although stretching for them to list it in every single one of their stores. And potentially we thought about the advantages for them, that this would be good for their business as well. And then our like, intend and must is the manufacturer's thinking that the most retailer margin that he could offer would be 22.8%. That's the absolute maximum margin he can offer to the retailer and still have a profitable deal. So that's his absolute walkaway point. He intends to offer them around 21.7%. and ideally would like 20.5. If he could get away with that, he'd be a very, very happy manufacturer indeed. So, along with setting that objective, is thinking about what they may have. Now, based upon previous conversations and dealings with Big Store Group, our negotiator knows that they want to improve the overall category margin from the widget. So they're stocking lots of different widgets in that category, and they want to increase their margin but also increase their revenue. So they want to sell more and make more margin. Their year end is the 31st of December, so we anticipate that their procurement people will have this as an objective, a formal, perhaps key performance indicator that they want to achieve by year end. So we're starting to think about what they're likely to want. And their like, intend and must, we believe we understand their margin position, so they're probably going to be intending to get to 22.5, but their must would be the new rates that they're challenging themselves with. We believe going into the negotiation it's extremely unlikely that they're going to accept anything less than that, and indeed they may wish to go for their like, to even get a huge whopping 23% margin to really make sure they achieve those objectives. So taking those two together, we're able to look and say, okay, here's the like, intend and must for us, and we would like 20.5 on an ideal day margin to them and 100% of their store stocking, and then through the other intend and the must. And then we can think about what Big Store Group will also be looking for, and that gives us some potential idea of what the bargaining arena is. Obviously at this stage we don't know for definite, but it gives us an idea that we can go in and test in the negotiation through questioning and listening carefully to the other party. So now we have a good idea what we want to achieve, we believe we understand what the other party wants to achieve, and we know, or we think we have some idea of what the likely parameters, the bargaining arena for the negotiation is. So then we move on into looking at where does the power balance lie between the two people or two organisations involved, and then to think about what information we need to gather, what do we need to understand from the other person to be able to negotiate an acceptable agreement. So we'll start with looking at our power. Our existing widgets are selling well in Big Store Group, so our negotiator is feeling fairly confident there. We have a television campaign booked to launch the new widget for July. That's obviously going to be high impact. That's going to be seen by lots of the people who would shop in the retail stores. We can grant a 3-month exclusivity at the start of the promotional period for the new widget. Now we may or may not wish to disclose that straight away, but it is something that we have, and that's quite a powerful thing. That might be something the retailer would be very interested in because it would give them a point of difference versus their competition. We also know that other key retailers will also be interested in having this new widget in their store. So, actions to increase our power is to think about being able to offer some additional promotional activity, emphasising the TV launch, and also that it's a time-pressured situation, that we do need to get an agreement from the retailer or retailers that we're going to be working with. So they're going to need to make a fast decision about whether they want to be part of this. We'll also emphasise the fact that the competitors are interested in getting this as well. Make sure the retailer doesn't get complacent and think they're the only game in town. And also we could offer exclusivity if they list us in 100% of stores. So we're starting to think now about how our position of power, making sure we're realistic about it. Then we look at their power. They are the largest retailer in the market. They have 34% of the market we're going for. So these guys are key players. They also trade very actively with car competitors. So they could leverage this. If we don't play ball with them, maybe they could de-emphasize us or increase competitor activity. They also control access to the store base. And as I've said, that is an important thing that we're looking for. So really they're in a good position there. But they need us and we need them. The balance of power is about how much that's going to be. So things to reduce their power, things we could do will be to make it apparent that the competitors are interested. We could potentially promote within the competitors of theirs our existing widgets that will maybe pull shoppers away from their stores. We could have 100% store listing as a key condition. We'll really dig our heels in on that. And if we do lose any share, if the negotiation doesn't go well and we do fall out with each other to some extent, we could regain that lost share through promoting in their competitors. So we're thinking through where the balance of power lies, thinking about things we can do to increase the perception of our power and to decrease their power. So having done that, we want to think about what questions do we need to ask to uncover information that will help us to craft a good negotiated agreement. So we might ask, for example, how the widget category is performing versus their expectations and their targets. What are their main priorities for the category in the next 6 to 12 months? What's their current average category margin? Where would you like it to be? Why? How did you arrive at that figure? How is the category performing versus your other categories? Is it underperforming or overperforming? What's your policy on delisting brands in the category, and what criteria do you apply when selecting key promotional lines? These obviously are not all of the questions we would ask or the information that we will gather. This is just a sample to give you some idea of some of the things you might like to think about when you're planning for your real negotiations. So having done this, we move on to the all-important thing of shopping lists. No pun intended here, we're talking about shopping lists and retailers. This is your negotiation shopping list. So we want to think, what is on our shopping list? What is or what might be on their shopping list? And very importantly, what are the needs that lie behind the items that they may have on their shopping list? So let's take a look at what's on ours. So we want to list the new widget, we want 100% of store stocking, we want shelf space right in the centre of the fixture, so it's right where people look when they're shopping the fixture. We'd like a feature for our new widget in key traffic areas where there's lots of shoppers, so in the store entrance, for example, on the ends of the aisles, and also impulse units near the checkout. We might want to have them send a special offer coupon to their customer database. But also we might have things that are more general and longer term. We might want priority unloading of our deliveries. Sometimes when we deliver to the retailer, we have to join a queue of vehicles waiting to unload. And sometimes that means that availability of our products is not as good as it should be. So maybe we want ours sort of green laned, as it's sometimes called. So we get priority unloading. We might also say that we'd like increased shelf space to the products they already stock, or indeed we'd actually quite like some of the competitor widgets delisted as well. So it's a good idea to have as many things on your shopping list as possible, but be really aware of what your key ones are. You never know when you're going to need to trade in a negotiation situation, so always having an up-to-date list of things you would want is good practice. Then we want to think of what's on their shopping list. Well, they want to increase their income, they want to increase their margin. Now, they may take that in the form of increased margin, but they almost say, well, we're going to make some income through advertising allowance. We're going to charge you for your point of sale or your point of connection material in store. To have your product in, we're going to charge you several £1,000s or dollars just to list it to cover our administration fee. We might want increased levels of promotional activity versus our competitors. They may want to extend your payment terms out to 120 days. Maybe at the moment you're getting paid within 60 days and they'd like to now make that 120. They might like exclusivity above the line, so on and so forth. So we think about the things that they may have on their shopping list, and then we think about the needs. So the needs behind these requests are likely to be increased margin, increase revenue, their ongoing campaign to have a better profile with consumers than their competitors. They're advertising their stores, in this case, as being good value for money, so they want to have lower pricing than competitors, and they have a declared corporate social responsibility plan, and they've made commitments to reduce the amount of waste that they produce, the amount of waste that goes into landfill, to increase the amount of recycled packaging and products that they use. So that will be a need that lies behind more products with green credentials. That might be something that we could use to leverage in the negotiation. So having gone through the shopping lists on both sides and thought about the needs that lie behind them, we then move into clustering together any potential issues and trading areas. Now, it's good practice to just keep these together in a group. Sometimes people put them in a sequence and they say, well, I'm going to deal with area A, and then we'll talk about area B, and then we'll talk about area C. That can cause huge problems for you in a negotiation, because negotiations are a two-way process, and the other party may not wish to talk about what you think is number one priority first. They may want to talk about something that you've got at number 7 on your list, and then your whole plan is shot. So I prefer just to keep them all clustered together. And here you can see I've filled in some potential ones. I've got exclusivity, percentage store distribution, off fixture display, whereabouts the widget will be displayed on the fixture, and so on and so forth. And what you can do with this is make connections and links, sometimes even drawing the lines to connect. For example, exclusivity at the top left with percentage store distribution. Those, in your mind, may be two linked and interconnected issues. And just drawing arrows or lines or making little notes to yourself on the planning document allows you to control, if you like, the dashboard for the negotiation. It allows you also to flex backwards and forwards between issues and see the all-important interconnections. It doesn't mean you get stuck with a sequential A, B, C, D process. So capture all of the potential issues and trading areas that you think are going to be discussed in the negotiation. Then we move into planning concessions. What are the concessions that you may be going to make, and what are they going to cost you to make them? And what is the perceived value to the other person? Now remember the principle of trading things that are low cost to you but are perceived to have high value to the other person. Just because something doesn't cost you a lot of money, do not just give it away. Always value your concessions in terms of what they're worth to the other person. And also flipping that around is thinking of things that are high value to you but are low or relatively low cost to them. If you can, obviously it's really good practice to use the actual monetary value to do a good, robust financial calculation, so you know exactly how much each concession is costing you, so you can make sure that you get something of equal or greater value in return. Or if that's not possible, and just to keep it simple for the example here, I've just rated them as high, medium and low. So here's a few examples. There's only 3 here. Obviously there could be lots more of these when you're planning for real. So for example, let's just take a look at the top one. Exclusivity. Cost to us, giving exclusivity actually is very low. The truth is that in this pretend fictional scenario, we can only manufacture the new widgets in limited quantities during the launch phase. We can't go for a huge launch in all the retailers. However, we're not necessarily going to declare that fact. That's something we may wish to keep to ourselves, as we know that they would really like exclusivity, as it gives them a real point of difference versus the competition. So what possible concessions could they make, or could we encourage them to make, is they could give us 100% store distribution in return for exclusivity. That's really high value to us, as we get a very focused launch in the #1 retailer. The cost to them? Well, actually, it's relatively low. It's just the administration costs of the new listing and creating the point of sale material in the store. So actually, that's something high value to us, but relatively low cost to them. And the issue of exclusivity is relatively low impact or low cost to us, but could be perceived as being very valuable to them. And I've just put another couple of examples in terms of percentage store distribution using the same kind of example, and above the line advertising. The ATL, by the way, that's shorthand for above the line. So we look at that one on the third line down there. Giving above the line advertising, actually the cost of that is very high to us. It's television and magazine exposure. But it's already built into our new widget launch budget. So there's no additional cost if, for example, we co-branded the advertising along with them. Now they may value that really highly as it gives them free above the line advertising. And we could also use that to say, if you give us exclusivity and if you give us distribution and display, then we can include you in our above the line advertising campaign. That will be a relatively medium impact for them. The only impact on them will be lost sales from any products that would have been occupying, in this case, for example, the off-fixture displays. So it's really good to think through the concessions you're likely to make and think about the cost to yourselves and the value to the other person. And then think about concessions you may ask them to make that will be, if at all possible, lower cost to them but higher value to you. Then we move on to thinking about what we're going to get specifically in return. This is the magic negotiation formula in action. If you do this, then we will do that. A real strong conditional proposal. Here we're just thinking through some of the concessions that we may ask for and what we would give in return. And here's just a few examples. If you give us 100% store distribution, then we will give you exclusivity. If you give us off-fixture displays in the foyer of the stores, then we will feature in the advertising campaign. If you give us an aisle end display in all your stores, then we will give you X £1,000 or dollars of advertising allowance, and so on and so forth. So we're making sure we never give anything away for free. Anything that we concede, we are always getting something of equal or greater value in return, and we will always make the proposals conditional. They must do the thing we are asking for them to receive the benefit. If you do this, then we will do that. Then we need to think about the people we're going to be negotiating with. What do you know about them? What do you know about their style and approach to negotiation? What's their personality like? And how do you need to adapt your style accordingly? Well, in this fictitious example, we're negotiating with two people. Firstly is Fred Smith. Fred's the head of the category. Fred has a very direct approach and he likes to get straight down to business. There's no time for small talk. He's not particularly going to want to talk about personal things, family, sport, etc. Fred's a business person who just likes to get straight down to business. So we're going to behave exactly in that way. He negotiates hard. He's very, very focused on margin, so we know to prepare accordingly. He's a bit of a big picture thinker, Fred. He doesn't really dig into the detail very much, so we just need to be prepared for that. And he makes fast decisions. So it could potentially be we get a decision in the first meeting with him. However, he can lose his temper and bang the table if he's not getting what he wants. Kind of suspect that this is a deliberate tactic, but we need to keep calm and remain firm in the face of that sort of intimidation if he does start banging the table. Now, potentially he's going to be accompanied by Sarah Jones, the chief buyer. Now, Sarah's a different kind of negotiator. She is very, very analytical, whereas Fred's big picture, Sarah's very analytical. Now, possibly Fred is aware that his attention to detail is not always as good as it should be, and maybe that's why Sarah's going to be involved as well. They're playing to their two strengths. She's going to have excellent attention to detail and is always going to probe financial calculations and assumptions. She is a sharp cookie where finance is concerned, and she can very rapidly calculate financial data and manages the overall value of deals really well. As a result of her analytical approach, she tends to be a little bit more slow in her decision making than Fred, but she's a sharp cookie. Now, interestingly, this difference in decision-making speed can sometimes cause a bit of friction between the two of them. So that might be something for us to be aware of and potentially something we could take advantage of. But we must make sure we're on the ball with all of the financial data. So what sort of negotiation style should we adopt? Well, due to our existing high level of business with Big Store Group, we've got to ensure that this negotiation doesn't adversely affect our existing product volumes or profitability. They're a key account for us, so we really don't want to fall out with them and go to war. So we're going to focus on demonstrating all the way through that we understand their needs and position our proposal as contributing towards those. It's going to be very focused on them. However, we must remain very firm on existing payment terms and not concede any increase in these. They have been hinting and pushing at this. We know this is coming, so we will probably ring fence this. We'll use an out of bounds approach and make sure that payment terms remain as they are. They are a very important retailer for us, but we are a key supplier to them, so there has to be a robust commercial win for both sides. But that doesn't mean this is going to be a walk in the park. We really are expecting them to play hardball at least some of the time. Therefore, we need to respond with great resolve and continually refocus the negotiation on working together to enhance the overall profitability of the category. And then finally, we might just think about some notes or some ideas or some actions that we're going to take in advance of the negotiation. So a couple of examples here is that we know the green issue is important to them. They've declared that they have a very strong corporate social responsibility plan in place. So we're going to get the packaging specifications in advance to demonstrate that our new widget is fully packaged in 100% recycled materials. Also, we're thinking about our negotiation team, and we know that Sarah is going to be really sharp on the financials, so we're going to counterbalance that by bringing along Jill as part of our negotiation team, who's an absolute whiz with the numbers. Then I'm also going to call a friend, for example, Brian from XYZ. He's a non-competing supplier who I know well through my network, and he's dealt with Sarah before. So I'm going to call him and ask him for any insights into what she's like. I'm going to try and suss her out in advance of going through. And then also I'm going to get some of my sales team to leak, in inverted commas, details of the TV campaign to some of the key store managers and intimate that one of their competitors, Medium Store Group, are expressing strong interest. We're going to very carefully select the key store managers, ones that we know will pass that message back up the line. So it's a little bit of preemptive work, if you like, just to sort of reduce some of their power potentially. And this is just a page for you to just capture any thoughts that you may have and anything that you think may be useful to you in the negotiation. So there we go. We've gone through the whole of the negotiation planning template. I do hope that's been useful for you. And you may obviously listen to this and watch this as many times as you want to just refresh your memory prior to planning and preparing before you go into your negotiations. I'd just like to finish by reminding you that preparation and planning prevents poor performance. Now, there is a version of that has another word in there that's kind of slightly rude, and I'm sure you'll have heard about it, but just for now, let's stick to the fact that preparation and planning prevents poor performance. Good negotiators plan and prepare well. And I do know you're a busy person. The world of business, the world of negotiation is a busy place. And sometimes you'll be pushed to find the time to negotiate. But an hour is better than 30 minutes. 30 minutes is better than 15 minutes. 15 minutes planning and preparation is better than 10 minutes. 10 minutes is better than 5 minutes, and 5 minutes is better than nothing at all. So please make sure you do at least some preparation and planning. And the more important the deal to you, the more planning and preparation you need to do. It's part of a disciplined approach to effective negotiation that will make you one of the best negotiators out there. This is Simon Hazeldine wishing you good luck and good negotiating.